Hello, welcome to Fibro Warrior, My New Normal. I'm MJ Aragon, and I'm here with my producers, Jojo Merritz
Hey.
and Tony Jeffries. And today I will be sharing Alexis Rose's Untangled blog, PTSD Does Not Define Me, It Impacts Me, and Peg Streep's blog, Unloved Daughters. I would have only read one had we done the podcast last week, but I'm going to fit two in this week since we missed a week. If I don't look my happy self today, it's because I'm a little stressed out. Some things are not quite going my way. My car has issues in the shop, and that's going to cost me an arm and a leg, and some other things going on, and so I'm a little out of it. I woke up today feeling really bad. I felt like a zombie when I woke up, just really tired and heavy, and so I've had a lot of caffeine in order to feel a little bit normal right now. So here I am. So I'm going to read Alexis Rose's Untangled first. PTSD doesn't define me, it impacts me. She wrote it on August 2nd, 2017. The other day, my son asked me what the difference is between my brain getting overwhelmed when shopping and my brain getting overwhelmed while working. He wanted to know if when shopping I recover after a couple hours. He understands that if I push it while working, it can take me out of the game for a whole day. I appreciated him asking me because anything that takes the elephant out of the room is wonderful. But I also understood that he asked me because I became so overwhelmed at the grocery store when we were shopping together, that he was concerned that my plans would be affected later that day. I'm grateful for his concern and his honest questions because he understands how my life is impacted by my symptoms. When I describe myself, I don't use adjectives that bring in my past. That I'm a survivor of a trauma or that I'm dealing with this unrelenting illness. I describe myself as a kind, compassionate person with a wicked, sometimes dark sense of humor who tries to live an authentic life. I have strong friendships and solid family support from my husband and children. That's how I would define myself. My PTSD doesn't define me, but it does impact me. The effects of my trauma and the resulting PTSD has changed my life. It prevents me from working more than 2 hours a day, hopping in the car to run errands, enjoying restaurants, travel, and I have to consciously work with the triggers that cause flashbacks and other assorted symptoms. While that doesn't define who I am, it does have an effect on my life. I'm in a position, as perhaps most people who deal with chronic or debilitating illness, to find a way to live with my symptoms and try to have an illness-free identity. It's hard. I spent years minimizing my feelings, being angry at my PTSD, thinking that I'm weak. After all, I survived unimaginable circumstances. Why can't I get my shit together and just get over this thing? That thinking wasn't helping my trajectory of healing, and it certainly didn't honor my past, my feelings, or the fact that I did survive. While PTSD doesn't define me, it certainly impacts my life. I am more than my past, more than my trauma, more than my illness. And my terrible past includes significant trauma resulting in an illness. Sometimes when people hear about it, read about it, and understand that there are some really awful people in the world, it makes them uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable information, and it should be. We shouldn't feel comfortable, complacent, and unfazed when hearing about abuse. It's something that can be stopped. Abuse is something that is done by one person to another. This illness has changed what I choose to be passionate about, speak about, write about, to understand what and who we are at our core, our intentions, and how we want to connect to others can define us. We aren't defined by our circumstances, illness, or professions, but they often dictate how we have to live day to day. It's been a struggle to accept this in my life. I imagine it's something I will have to wrestle with as long as I have PTSD. Perhaps, even if I didn't have an illness, I would be checking myself, making sure I have a larger view, a compassionate perspective, and hope. Always hope. Thank you for reading my memoir, Untangled, a story of resilience, courage, and triumph. She is on WordPress once again, and a lot of us, myself included, probably deal with PTSD, so I thought it was important to share her journey with this. I can relate to it, of course, as many of you probably can, and a lot of us have fibromyalgia because of trauma in our life, which is also causes to have PTSD. So I thought it was important that I shared that one. And I will put the link at the bottom when I share this, when I put the description, I will put the link in there so you guys can check her out and read other things that she's written if you'd like. And I also want to read, Peg Streep. Her, the title is actually Unloved Daughters and the Problem of Friendship. And here it goes. Excuse me 1 second. All right. While rarely mentioned, one common legacy of an unloving mother is a daughter's diminished ability or total inability to form close and sustaining friendships. This is a significant loss since friendship plays an important role in many women's lives. Our girlfriends are often the people we turn to in times of joy and trouble, when we need company or support, or we just need someone to truly listen. Unloved daughters often have trouble forging these bonds or maintaining them. The emotional isolation they felt in childhood is often replicated in adulthood, when they find themselves with few or no girlfriends or women they can actually trust. Why is that? Our mothers are the first females we know in close proximity, and we learn. For better or for worse, not just what it means to be female, but how females connect and relate. As children, we absorb the lessons our mothers model through their behaviors, accepting them as normal. We have nothing to compare them to, after all. And these become the unconscious templates of how we believe women act and relate in the outside world. Even though we're unaware of them and their influence, we carry these scripts when we go out into the world as children, adolescents, and adults, and make friends with other girls and later, women. As a daughter of a jealous and withholding mother, I was cautious and wary as a girl when it came to friendships, especially in adolescence. Looking back, it's clear that I viewed all girls as potential competitors who, if I let them, would somehow get the upper hand and hurt me. Other women now, in their 50s, can find that my own neediness and insecurity trip me up with friends. I always end up somehow being the pleaser with other women. I give 100% and they give 10%, and I end up feeling used. The internalized voice of the mother telling you that you are unlovable, unlikable, unworthy, inadequate can become especially shrill when you're in the company of other women, whether they are neighbors, colleagues, acquaintances, or even girlfriends who actually long to be close to. Gleaned from many conversations, here are 4 pieces of the maternal legacy that directly affect female friendships. Lack of trust. A loving and attuned mother models a world in which people are trustworthy and that extending yourself, leaving yourself open and vulnerable to another person has great benefits. The unloved daughter learns the opposite, and even worse, because her mother never acknowledges her behaviors. The daughter not only distrusts other people, but her own perceptions and feelings. In friendships, she may be dismissive or wary or in need of constant reassurance and proof that her friend is really on her side. Either way, how she acts, even though she may want and need the friendship desperately, effectively sabotages it. 2. Unable to heed boundaries. Absent the validation of a self-loving mother provides, unloved daughters have difficulty recognizing what constitutes a healthy boundary. They may facilitate between being overly amored and being much too clingy. While this is partly a result of the daughter's lack of trust, it also reflects her ongoing, unfulfilled need for love and validation. I think I exhausted my friendship when I was in my 20s and 30s. One daughter, 48, reported, "It took me a long time to recognize that my friends needed space and that sometimes my constant demands for their attention were too much. Therapy helped me see that all I was doing was focusing on my needs without understanding the give and take friendship requires." 3. Oversensitivity. All unloved daughters have trouble managing negative emotions. They have difficulty self-regulating and are prone to rumination, and if their mothers have been dismissive, combative, or hypercritical, are always vigilant and self-protective. A friend's comment or gesture that wouldn't even appear on a securely attached daughter's radar can be totally misunderstood and blown out of proportion by an insecurely attached one. These can be small things, an unreturned phone call, a late invitation, an offhand remark that become triggers and flashpoints. 4. Feelings of rivalry. Unfortunately, the unloved daughter's lack of trust, difficulty with boundaries, and oversensitivity may be compounded by feelings of rivalry, especially if her mother has been jealous of her or if there are another favored daughter with whom she competed unsuccessfully for her mother's approval and attention. While unloved daughters who are only children tend to idealize a relationship of sisters, think Little Women. The reality is much more complicated. As Deborah Tannen writes in her book, "You are always mom's favorite." These two views of sisters, someone who sets you straight and someone who twists your words so they're boomerang back and hurt you, represent the potential best and worst of sister conversations. It's often hard for the unloved daughter to acknowledge her feelings of competition because the culture tends to look away or minimize rivalry between and among women. Thinking about sisterhood is so much more pleasant, even though the word frenemy has been around since the 1950s when it was coined to describe politics, not rival girlfriends. Susan Barash Shapiro's book, Tripping the Prom Queen, paints a more realistic picture of the complexity of the female connections. Alas, the loneliness of childhood may be unwittingly extended in adulthood unless conscious awareness is brought to bear on a daughter's reactivity. Peg Streep is the author or co-author of 11 books, most recently Quitting Why We Fear It and Why We Shouldn't, In Life and Love and Work, and Mean Mothers, Overcoming the Legacy of Hurt. And she lives in New York City, and you can visit her on Facebook, and I'll post her copyrighted. I will also share her link below. She's on WordPress and on Facebook. I shared this one because after talking to so many friends who have fibro like myself, and with many of you who are watching me now, I know that a lot of us have a complicated relationship with our mothers, our families in general, but our mothers especially, because that's supposed to be a tight relationship, or you would think so. I wasn't that lucky, and I know that a lot of us were not. Fortunately, as time has moved on and I've grown, I've come to understand some of why she was the way she is by understanding myself and how I look upon things. And growing up, that it helps me to understand her a little bit, even though it was difficult to get things out of her. Having a real conversation is always difficult. It tends to be a little one-sided. So when you're having a conversation with the person that's supposed to love and protect you, and you're telling them about something complicating in your life and how hurt you are, or anything of that nature, and their comeback is only what they've been through, and they don't acknowledge what you've been through, it's hurtful, and it's difficult, and that makes you not want to share anything, because that is the answer always is not an answer to your question or how you're feeling. It's always about them. And I know that it's because of her relationship with her parents, and it's incredible if you go back and you really search, not just within yourself, but search the past and how things used to be, and how my mom was brought up, and how her parents treated her, and how her parents may have been treated. You think back in time, like, okay, what happened with her mother that made her, less than communicative, and then what happened with my mom, and why we aren't that communicative, and so on and so forth. I worry that I worried always that would happen with my kids, so I tried to be very open and talk with them about everything. Unfortunately, my being ill is a subject that is difficult to talk about, and so whether I'm believed or not is really the issue, I think. But I think that overall, though, I did try to keep an open dialect with my children, and that's important. I think that we have to learn from not only our own mistakes, but the mistakes of our mothers and our parents, and learn from them. And I'm not saying to go 180, to change it completely, because sometimes that's not the answer either. And I think a lot of us, where we are trying to fix something that we thought was wrong with the way our parents treated us, we do go completely opposite. And that's not always the answer. Sometimes that's so extreme that you make it just as bad, and just in a different way. So we have to really take our time and reflect on things, and think about the way that we do things, and the words that we choose to use, and how we help our children get through the problems that they're dealing with. Because if we can't help them with their problems, they're going to later on have difficulty as adults, because they weren't taught how to deal with them properly. And as a child, you don't ultimately know the right way to deal with anything. you're learning from your mentors who are your parents. And so if your parents aren't great role models, that is going to affect you later in life. And so I am the product of my parents, and my parents are the product of their parents, and so on and so forth. And because I've learned that, and I've done so much research and read so many things, psychological things and whatnot, just trying to figure out who I am and why I am the person I am today, and what made me this way. Not only my illness, which has a great impact on me, but just my life in general, the things that have happened to me from childhood on, and how everything has come to be the way it is today. I think a big part of my mother and I, our relationship, is because she was only 17 when she had me. She was still a child, and she didn't really know how to treat me like her daughter. And there were times that I kind of felt like it was more of a competition than a mother-daughter relationship. And as she got older, things just got more difficult because we didn't communicate. Not really, and every time that we did try to have a conversation, one or both would be crying and arguing, and it was never a true conversation. And that's what I hope for people, that if you really can dig down and figure out why things are the way they are, and why you are the way they are, and your parents and so on and so forth, that you will be able to grow to a point where you, if not your parent or the other family member, whomever it may be in your life that you're having difficulty, if not them, at least you, if you can grow, you can learn to love them the way they are. Just you have to get to a point where you're just like, that's who they are. They're older now. You're pretty much set in your ways when you're older anyway, so it has to be about you. You have to make the effort. Unfortunately, when our parents are older, they are who they are. There's not a lot of changing that's going to happen. And unless some big illness or something happens, and it may change their frame of mind because of that, because that changes people, obviously, as we all know, to go from feeling fairly well to being sick all the time. It changes your mindset, and it does make you more compassionate and more empathetic towards things. So that, in that way, you can change. But I think about, the ways of how someone acts, or who they are, the core who they are. That doesn't really change. They are who they are. They've turned into this person. So it's about you learning to grow yourself, learning to accept that that's who they are, and that you can either love them or not the way they are. And I've discovered that by doing that for myself, that when I see my parents, I'm happy to see them. I'm happy to see my mom, and I've talked about this before. When I say I love you, it's not just, offhand. I love her, I understand that she's been through some things, and although she didn't share all the things with me that I wish she would have, so I could have understood her more and earlier in life, I figured it out on my own, and because of that, I'm much more relaxed and happy, and a lot less things that I worry about. The big issue really that I worry about now is that my kids are going to be okay. Even if they are never close to me, I just want to know that my sons are good, that they're healthy and happy, whether I'm in their life or not. That's the most important thing, and that's the only thing that's in my head always, is I'm always thinking about them. No matter what I'm doing, they cross my mind every day. And so these things that I shared, the PTSD, because of what happened to me as a child, has changed me and made me the person I am today. And having a mother that I had, where we had our difficulties, has also made me who I am. So that's why these things are important. I think that if we really look back and see the things that we've been through and realize we are who we are, that there is a core reason. And if you can figure out what that core reason is, you will be able to be okay with yourself. You'll be able to go, okay, I get it. Because it's like a light comes on and you just realize, that aha moment when you just realize, this makes sense. Okay, now I get it. And it brings you relief. You actually get to relax and realize that you can just enjoy things. That you can just enjoy things as they are, as they come, because you understand now. And understanding is so important. And I have a little time, so I'm going to share. I just wrote this blog the other day. It's called Childhood Expectations. And it's a short one, so I have time to read it. But it's just a little kind of haha, but I make a few points that I think that a lot of us may have thought about or not. And I might just be pointing those out to you now. So Childhood Expectations is what it's called. And Sometimes a simple picture can evoke feelings you didn't know you've had. So I came across this photo of a little girl on a balcony, and the balcony entrance was shaped like a princess, like a grown-up woman in a princess dress. And you see the little girl, kind of looking up in the sky, like that's her expectation. So that picture kind of evokes some feelings. So that's why I wrote this. So like I said, sometimes a simple picture can evoke feelings you didn't know you've had. From a young age, we look forward to whom we might become one day and have the highest expectations of what that could be. Doctors, firemen, astronauts. I mean, we were children. Everything seemed possible in our youth, not at all realizing what big shoes we must feel, that our expectations don't always coincide with what life throws our way, and how they would become vastly unlike the fairy tales that we've once read. This illness makes us feel much less like a princess or prince, and more like the little old woman who lived in a shoe, or Humpty Dumpty who fell off the wall. Only the shoe was also full of holes, and Humpty's pieces were misplaced. Has reading all of those happy endings set us up for real disappointments in life? In a way, yes. First of all, wanting to only become a princess, as a tomboy, mind you, so being a princess was not on my list, is putting a chokehold on the minds of witty young girls. We can become so much more than someone's arm candy or a trophy wife, and thankfully, many of us are. Telling us all that this is what we have to look forward to. I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied. Telling us that this is all we have to look forward to is not conducive to our powers within. The Princess and the Pea comes to mind. The power to detect a pea beneath 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. Pretty impressive, I'd say. We do feel that sensitive at times, no kidding. Many a sleepless nights for this gal. All joking aside, to those of us who rose up to the occasion and became independent, I applaud you. But we have also come to realize that having and raising a family is indeed hard work as well. So the fairy tales of yore were deceiving in many fashions. And thus, we were unprepared for life's gifts of tragedy, traumas, and illnesses. Yes, there were and are wonderful things in our lives, family, friends, and celebrations, of course. But those happy endings seem to be completely out of reach. These days, we can be left feeling more like the eccentric Mrs. Havisham from Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, another favorite of mine. Only we're waiting for the ending instead of the happy, the ending of pain, the ending of disbelief, and the ending of loneliness. We're trying to just feel normal, and our new normal is filled with searching for the cure to what ails us. And if we do indeed find it, I guess that will be our happily ever after. So I wrote that on Wednesday, or Tuesday, actually. It's funny how some things, just little things like that photo will provoke thoughts, and something like that, something as simple as that can make us think deeply about things. And, it's true, I was reading I improvised some stories to my granddaughter a few weeks ago, and, and I'm thinking about some of these princess stories, and everything's all about the happily ever after, and it's kind of deceiving because, life isn't always happily ever after. I mean, there's many people that have a very happy life, but to think that, you're going to meet this wonderful man and then he's going to sweep you off your feet and then that's it. That's the end of the story. You don't have to do anything. Life is such a breeze, and that's not at all how it is. And so I think we're kind of leaving something out, and I'll have to look this up, and if I find it, I will put a link. But there's these two young ladies who wrote a book that's completely opposite of that, and as I was writing this, I recalled seeing something about that. They wrote a book because they are feeling the same way I am about the whole princess thing, that's the only thing girls seem to be looking forward to is, life is a fairy tale, and, beautiful dresses and a man who does everything for them, and me, myself, I wanted to do things on my own, and I know there's a lot of us like that. But
I don't want to give my daughters this book.
Yeah, I will find it and I will put a link. But yeah, I think that the stories need to be more about a woman's personal strength. A child growing up to be a woman who can do things on her own, not so much about being a princess. That's why I like some of these ones where the girls are warriors. Is Untangled one of them, or maybe?
That's
maybe I'm just thinking
cartoon.
Of the story.
It's
but
a movie.
It's a cartoon, but the girl.
Untangled was that's Rapunzel.
Yeah, that's Rapunzel. The one with the warrior girl. She has red hair, and then there's another.
Oh, she has a Brave.
Brave, yeah.
Brave is really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, those I like because it shows the girl in more of a powerful position,
Mm-hmm.
not just, just being a girl. She gets to be something else, something more than a princess. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate those kind of stories. But yeah, as soon as I find them, I will post a link and maybe even talk about them next week just to talk about them more. But I also wanted to mention, I have a friend, her name is Megan Young, and she's such a sweetheart. She's friends of the family of my best friend Kelly, and I've got to know her over certain occasions, family get-togethers at Kelly's house, and got to know her and her mom, and she's just such a sweetheart. And I seem to have inspired her to do a YouTube as well. So she thanked me a couple times on her videos, which I think is so sweet. And so I wanted to mention her. I meant to do this a couple weeks ago, but she suffers from epilepsy and seizures. And so she decided that she wanted to do a YouTube as well, kind of like what I'm trying to do, to create awareness and help people understand the differences and what it's like. And it's a little less formatted than what we're doing here. She's just kind of going with the flow, just being herself, and she's quirky and adorable, and I love her. So I will also post her link in the description so that you can check her out. At least go check her out, just see what she's about, and if you know someone who has any of those things going on with seizures or epilepsy, then please send them her way. And if there's some things that they don't know, or maybe they'll learn some new things from watching her YouTube video, and I'm sure she'll appreciate you guys checking her out. She just started, she only has 2 up so far. She just put it up about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the first one. So I'm really proud of her. I'm glad that she stepped out of her comfort zone and tried to do this. It's enlightening. Doing this is so much fun. I love that I get to do this for you guys every week, and I hope that she finds the same enjoyment that I have. Anyway, I think our time's up, right? Yeah. Okay. So
About 20 seconds.
So yeah. So anyway, just again, just to reiterate, try if you're having a difficult time with your family members or your mom, dad, whomever it is that you should be closer to, but you're not, and they're older, and you come to realize that they're just not going to change, and you have to find it within yourself to try and make that change. It's important that you try to grow, because if you don't try to make the change, they're not going to, and it will continue to be that way. So sometimes we just have to step up and do it on our own, and I think that's the best thing for us. It makes us stronger, helps us understand more, and it will make our lives easier. So I hope that you can find a way to do that like I have, and I wish you the absolute best. As you all know, you're not alone. I love you. I love you. I love
Falling in love with you is the wrong thing for me to do right now.
watch whichever you like. We are going to take a little break. My producers, they both have actual jobs, and for me, this is it, so this is, something I look forward to, but they are tired, so we are going to take a little break because I care. They're my family, and I need to make sure that everybody's good. So we're going to take a month off. I know that seems like forever, but while we're off, I'm going to continue to share the podcasts that we've already done. We have 28, so there's plenty there to repeat and show again, and I'm sure many of you haven't watched them all. The beginning ones, there is no video to go along with them. We only have audio, but we do have them on YouTube. Tony wonderfully put photos with them, so there's a picture and then just the audio on YouTube, but still you get to listen to it. And then about halfway through, I think it was 10 maybe, we started doing video, right? About 10, Tony? Yeah, so from about 10 on, I think we have video for the rest of those. So once again, everything is on YouTube, but the first 10 are all audio, or the first 9 are all audio, and the rest are all accompanied with video. And as time goes on, you'll see how the video gets a little bit better.